It all comes down to this. The PGA Tour Championship coming up this weekend at East Lake Golf Club. $15 million will be giving out to the winner of this event this weekend, but also we will crown the winner of the 2021 Bobble Hat Championship between myself and Brandon Gadula, our PGA head-to-head coming down to the final event. So a lot to break down, a unique format for the Tour Championship. We got a lot to discuss, so let's do that right now. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Stonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, last week was good. I won the Bobble Hats. My two win picks were Bryson DeChambeau.
We're Brooksy.
Who said,
Brooksy.
Nice job, Brooksy. So Bryce is going to call in to whoever runs us. I mean, I know who my boss is, but I'm not going to tell him. And get us kicked off the air. Anyway, Bryson and Cantlay, my two win picks last week. That was great. And tied you up in the Bobble Hat, which means we have it all decided this week. Tied 16-16, I think 17-17, whatever.
15-15, who could say?
Yeah. Either way.
Just me, I could say, but
the winner this week wins our Bobble Hat. And if you don't know what the Bobble Hat is, it's our weekly head-to-head we do here on the podcast. We keep track throughout the year. Started after the Masters back in November. We are tied heading into the final event. If I win, Brandon owes me a bobblehead. If he wins, I owe him a hat. He is currently wearing a former Bobble Hat trophy to taunt me on the air. So I'm pretty shook, Brandon. Do you feel confident heading into this final week of the Bobble Hat?
I mean, I guess statistically I should, because as I was telling you, I ran the numbers and you've won 4 in a row. So for me to lose 5 in a row, that's about 3% likely to happen. Mm-hmm. But of course, what happened the past 4 weeks has no bearing on what happens this week anyway. So
it might, though, because you might be just so rattled because I'm so great that it might.
It could actually be like
48%,
70-30 or something.
I think 48 is more appropriate. But
well, the other thing too is I was trying to be good content creator and not both have Patrick Cantlay as our win picks because I picked him everywhere. I picked him myself. I was like, no, I'll just pick other guys because And then of course Cantlay has the best putting performance of all time, and he went. So I'm happy, but now you're within striking distance.
But you actually bet him, so doesn't that actually matter more than our competition?
Does it? I mean, I want to make sure because we actually do a.
I mean, if you want to give me the outright money from Cantlay, I'll take it, and then you can have the win pick for the podcast. That's fine. I'll make that exchange.
Okay, I'll give you my winnings, and then if I win the win pick, I mean, we do a secondary bobble hat for the win picks anyway. So I mean, it's tough because I was up in both of these. You're demolishing me in head-to-heads. It's in head-to-head bets. It's 29-12. I can't even fathom being that bad at something, but I apparently am. And I was like, well, I'm gonna get 2 hats here for winning win picks and bobble hat. No, I wasn't. It wasn't cemented, but I was like, it's trending that way. It's gonna take kind of a collapse, and I'm collapsing. So it's a little unnerving.
You mentioned the head-to-head bets. Our worst bet ever actually wound up being not that bad because we bet Corey Connors and Sergio Garcia head-to-head who would gain the most or lose the least strokes putting last week. And they both gained. They actually both wound up positive. Sergio won by a bit, but
Connors was a negative 0.7.
Oh, was he?
On Fantasy National, he is.
Oh, I pulled from Data Golf. What was
those adjust for field strength? Which
okay, cool. Well,
that makes sense.
Either way, it wasn't that bad. So, yay us on that one. But either way,
I mean, look, if anyone, I couldn't give a better example of how bad I'm running in these head-to-head bets than having betting against Sergio's putter and having him finish 10th in putting in a great field. So that's about where I am. And at a course where Bryson just his distance was just it took a historic and historic, I think, is also.
But I bet Bryson too. So Cantlay winning, all it does is it changes what I need to do to beat you this week.
Can I finish?
No. Did you if you listen to this podcast? Have I ever not interrupted you?
At a course where Bryson's distance had him 6 shots above everyone else, aside from the guy who had the best putting week since we've had strokes gain data, he should have ran away with it. But in that same course, somehow Abe Answer finished top 10 and was in the mix the whole. And I was like, those don't go together. But you somehow got at a course where
I didn't have Brooks in the bobblehead, did I? I had Answer.
All right. Did you call Bryson Brooks again?
Oh my God.
No, you didn't have
it's
Bryson.
Because we were talking about Koepka a bunch before we recorded, because he's an amazing
He's
play
the
play.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I know we're lingering here more than we ever do, but we have 30 golfers to go over. But no, it wasn't that you had Bryson in the bobblehead as well. You had Answer, but I'm saying it was a course where if you said, hey, Bryson's going to go beat everyone by 6, aside from the guy who had the hottest putter in 20 years. I'm like, okay, you go ahead and play Abe Answer then, Jim. Yeah. And it still worked out. So I don't know what I'm running extremely bad right now, and I can't make it stop.
You know what your issue is? You didn't play the best plays, Brandon, regardless of archetype. How dare you? But today we're going to discuss the best plays for the Tour Championship. We're going to break down the event, the unique format for this week, and what it all means, who stands out after accounting for the format, and more right now. The Tour Championship is at East Lake Golf Club. It is 7,346 yards and a par 70. It has hosted all 13 previous FedEx Cup championships. There are 30 golfers in the field, so shockingly no cut this week with 30 golfers in the field. And there are staggered starting scores for this week. That is the thing that started 2 years ago for this event. Cantlay is going to begin this event at 10 under par. Tony Finau is 8 under. Bryson DeChambeau is 7. John Rahm is 6. Cameron Smith is 5. Then it goes down from there. 5 golfers at 4 under, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's obviously a big thing. But at the same time, these numbers are accounted for in both the win odds and the salaries. So they're going to play a key role in dictating finishing points for DFS, but also they will also be accounted for in those factors. In the 2 years they have used this format, the winners have been the 1st and 5th seeds, so 10 under and 5 under. That is noteworthy for sure. We've not seen someone make a massive comeback, but there have been guys who've gotten close despite starting pretty far in the hole. So we'll see how things play out. Winner gets $15 million for this week. Brandon, talk to me about East Lake Golf Club. Talk to me about this format and this event and what we should know heading into this week.
Yeah, so it's a par 70. It runs 7,300 yards. The average green size here, just over 6,000 square feet, so about as average as you can get. And these greens are Bermuda. The 2 winning scores, the net winning scores, have been 21 and 18 under. The gross winning scores are 15 and 13 under in that span. And if you dig back a bit, it's roughly been around that 13 to 15 under. So if you remove the starting scores, imagine it's going to be an event where it takes about a 15 under score to win. So easy, not necessarily 20 to 25 under, but still plenty of birdies to rack up. There are renovations at this course back in both 2016 and 2020. They did remove some trees in 2020. I mean, it's kind of a boring course, statistically, to break down, because it's pretty run of the mill, aside from the fact that driving accuracy gets a big boost according to Data Golf's course fit tool. Now, what that typically means for us is that variance gets increased because the shorter hitters, this seems like an Abe Answer week whenever we know driving accuracy is a big benefit, and that distance isn't an absolute must. Now, this is a little bit longer than your typical par 70, but not substantially so. So, I mean, for me, I'm kind of playing it pretty straight, with my key stats going to be strokes gained approach, number 1. Just always explains the highest percentage of scoring among the tee to green stats. Strokes gained off the tee for me, because driving accuracy matters, but I don't ever want to discount distance for golfers who can pick it up. Birdie or better rate is close to a must for me. I want guys who can either get into scoring position with opportunities gained, which is a fantasy national stat, or who are just converting birdies. So for me, it's kind of just approach off the tee, accuracy a little bit, and birdie or better rate, I think, is going to get us where we need to go.
Yeah, I think that one question people may have is, did the renovations in 2020, removing the trees, alter the skew towards accuracy? And it didn't really. Looking back at last year, if you look at the golfers who gained strokes last year, their average ranking in good drives gained for the year was 55th. The guys who lost strokes, their average ranking in good drives gained was 117th. So the guys who were good in that regard played well last year, even after they changed things with the trees. So I do still have good drives gained as being a key stat for me this week, because that's what the data says. That's what Data Golf says. That's what last year's good performances did as well. So that's the reason that I am there. Also, I do want to reiterate what you said. The birdies or the birdie stuff, it matters a lot. So I'm looking at birdies or better gain, because as you mentioned, everyone's pretty much going to get scoring points this week, finishing points this week. So if you want golfers who are going to score well for DFS and separate from the pack, you need birdies desperately. Like, I would say more so in this event than any event the entire year, you need birdies, not just because of the actual score for birdies, but also like if you want, we can't use only guys who are 500 par starting for this event. If you want guys who are going to make up ground and erase those deficits, you need birdies, obviously. So I think that more so than other weeks, putting a key focus on guys who can get birdies and score low will be a huge factor this week. So I know you said it, but I want to emphasize how important it is this week.
Well, Jim, isn't picking guys at the bottom of the starting score grid, isn't that bad process?
Well, Brandon, you tell me, because you've looked at the data from previous tour championships under this format. So, Brandon, educate me in an unplanned segment about optimal rosters in the past 2 years.
Yeah, so I mean, it's 2 years that we've had this modified start, which I still don't know how I quite feel about it. I think it's like good to reward guys for like the full season. I don't know. The playoffs are just kind of their own thing, and I can't complain whenever we get really good golfers interested in playing an event. Because last week I didn't care that it was the FedEx Cup playoffs. I cared that it was like Cantlay and Bryson going head to head with some other guys like lurking with John Rahm and even Abe Answer. But the past 2 years, we have seen a golfer start outside the top 20 because everyone's just bucketed. In 2019, Chez Reavie made the optimal lineup on FanDuel. He was starting 21st, so 1 under par. And then last year it was Mackenzie Hughes starting 26th. So he started at even par. Those guys both made it, but they were the only golfer outside the top 20. We typically see someone, at least one golfer in that 16th bucket too. So starting 2 under. So those guys are still relevant. But last year, I'll just say the full optimal lineup. DJ was starting 10 under. His salary is $14,400. We do not have someone like that this year. The highest salary is $13,000 for John Rahm because he's starting back off of the lead of Patrick Cantlay. Justin Thomas started 3rd, so he was 7 under. Xander Schaffler started 3 under. He was in that 11th tier. Then Scottie Scheffler, Tyrrell Hatton, both 2 under, and then Mackenzie Hughes. So it's going to feel like we want to maximize the amount of starting strokes we get, and there is some credence to that. Because we've had, multiple guys in that top 5 in both of the optimal lineups. So I'm not saying avoid that tier, but for an optimal lineup, we generally do see a lot of golfers come from outside, starting with like, let's say 2 to 3 strokes or fewer. So that's pretty interesting to me. As far as FanDuel points leaders go, so different than winners. The winners, we had DJ last year starting 10 under, and then for that, Rory at 5 under. Rory led that year in FanDuel points, but actually last year, it was Xander Schaffler who led in FanDuel points. He was starting 3 under. So I think that's relevant. I can tweet out a chart here in a bit too that kind of shows a breakdown, but it's going to feel strange. It's going to feel weird rostering golfers who are like at even par, 1 under par, but historically we do see someone in their breakthrough. And that's why I think the emphasis on scoring, so birdies and eagles, is so key, because if you get that one guy in that 7,000 range who just makes up ground, and there are plenty of candidates down there, specifically Daniel Berger, Sergio Garcia, but I think that's kind of one thing that we should keep in mind for this week.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway for me from the numbers you discussed is those punt plays, the lower salary guys. And punting is a loose term here because punting usually means I think people take it to mean they don't care what they get. I just mean from a salary perspective.
Yeah.
You should always care. But getting guys who are at the bottom end of the salary tier, starting around even par or one under, as a Chez or Mackenzie Hughes, like those can work. And there are guys who fit that pretty well this week in terms of guys I'd be willing to use personally. So I think that's kind of the big takeaway for me is I don't want to just use anyone down there, but I can feel leeway. Like if I feel myself feeling good about Corey Connors, Daniel Berger, someone like that, I feel like I have the agency to use them based on what we've seen here the past 2 years.
And the thing is, this year, I don't know what it looked like last year or the year before, but you mentioned some names already. Corey Connors is 7,700 on FanDuel. Daniel Berger is 7,600. Patrick Reed, we don't know what his health is. He might not even play, but he's 7,300. Yeah. Joaquin Niemann, who we talk about all the time, 7,200. Eric Van Rooyen, Billy Horschel, Sergio Garcia, Stuart Sink, all minimum salary. I have preferences here, but aside from Reed, who I'd probably just stay away from just due to uncertainty, and Stuart Sink, I could see the case for all these guys. So it might be a week where I try to narrow down the studs and then and then rotate in through all those different guys, because they can all exceed their salary pretty easily. So I might need to whittle down the studs so that I can just rotate in all the $7,000 golfers.
And I think for my personal preferences, I feel better about committing to a couple of the studs too, which makes it easier to go that same route for me as well. So we'll talk about some golfers who have done well at Eastlake in the past in just a bit. But first, hey, football fans, the 2021 NFL season is right around the corner, and FanDuel is giving fans the opportunity to get in on the action by playing fantasy football. Right now, FanDuel has daily best ball fantasy drafts that you can compete in. All you have to do is head over to FanDuel.com and draft your team. Pick a league with your desired number of teams, draft your squad, and compete for prizes. Of course, they have private leagues as well. You can get Mac Jones as a late round pick now because Cam Newton just got cut. Head on over to FanDuel today and start drafting. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. Let's dig into past history here at Eastlake Golf Club because, again, they've been here for a very long time, which means we've got some golfers who have done well here in the past. And the first guy is not just a course history guy, but also someone you talked about in the past, Brandon, is someone who feasts in small fields with no cut, where he can kind of go all out. That's Xander Schaffler, checking in at 10-5 this week. He is just 2 under, but he's shown in the past that he can overcome that. So what do you see with Xander here at 10-5?
Yeah, he won the 72-hole score event here last year, which is how he ended up scoring the most FanDuel points. He won the Tour Championship in 2017 outright as a rookie too. Shot at 12 under, which again is around where the 72-hole scores have fallen. So that 12 to 15 under. So, there are going to be birdies. It's not going to be just darts, which, last week was kind of exciting. It was very exciting because of the playoff, but I don't like that kind of golf. I found it really boring. But this week should set up a little bit better for me then from a viewing standpoint. But Schaffler has actually gained strokes in all 16 of his rounds at Eastlake, according to FantasyNational.com. No other golfer in this field has gained strokes in more than 79% of their rounds. Rory McIlroy has gained in 22 of 28 rounds here, which is 79%. Schaffler, I feel like, is kind of off the radar. He's always seemed to be more popular than, and I love Xander. Anyone who knows that, I love Xander. He's always one of the most popular golfers. I feel like he's starting to be a little bit off the radar. We're getting Cam Smith, some other fan favorites, possibly even Abe Answer, just that people seem to like a lot. But it's a no-cut event. It's a course where he's thrived. I think he's not going to get as much love starting just 2 under. But again, we've seen guys start 2 under, make the optimal. We've seen Xander climb back last year and play really well here. We've seen him play well here every time he's been here. So Does he do enough for you, or is the salary too high based on just how poor the starting score is?
Well, let's talk about Rory, because Rory's at the same starting spot as Xander. They're both 2 under. So let's talk about Rory, then we'll talk about both these guys together. Rory is 2 under. So he's in a bit of a hole, but similar to Xander, he has done well here previously. Rory was the first guy to win at East Lake in this current format. Did that back in 2019. He has played East Lake 7 total times. Rory has 2 wins and a runner-up in that time. Other win for him was back in 2016. The runner-up was in 2014. So we know Rory can boogie here, which is interesting because the form is getting a bit better. He finished 4th at the BMW this past weekend. He did that despite losing 0.2 strokes in approach. Now, that could be a bad thing, but the approach play for Rory had been red hot heading into the FedEx Cup playoffs. If that comes back, he could blow up. Rory is better on Bermuda, which is the surface for this week, than Bentgrass. He can make some birdies. So he's 10-9. Xander is 10-5. Both these guys are starting 2 under. Brandon, like you said, they can make up ground. If you just match up like starting spot with FanDuel salary, these guys are going to look over salaried. But we know they can go low. So what are your thoughts on the 2 of them together? And do you have a strong preference between the 2?
I prefer Xander. I think he is just a safer bet from a fairways gain standpoint. That's pretty safe to say. He is a significantly better putter than Rory as well. So I know it's a no-cut event and you don't have to worry about missed cuts, but hitting fairways and making putts is a very good combination for just birdie conversion. I mean, I know that distance is going to correlate stronger than fairways hit with birdies gained, but Xander's also not short. So for me, it's going to be Xander, but I don't see a whole lot of golfers who I wouldn't play. I think it's a really good balance of like guys' form and their starting score. Like I don't really see any golfers where I'm like, this guy's salary is way too high because his starting score is really good. And I don't see any golfer kind of like the opposite where like it just you would want Rory to be 10-9 right now. So like I think that's fair. So I don't think anyone is kind of just an egregious salary right now. So for me, I'm not out on Rory, but I do prefer Xander. I don't know if any of that made sense to you.
It does. I prefer Xander too. It is a $400 discount as well. And like $400, I know it's a no-cut event, but like that can do some damage this week. So I do like that extra flexibility that Xander gets you there. Great the putting thoughts as well. So I prefer Xander. I would not be opposed pivoting to Rory if he were to shape up as being less popular, but because of what you said about Xander, potentially people souring on him, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think that from a salary perspective, from a fit perspective, from a roster A perspective, everything points towards Xander. So I'll take that. I will say though, among the guys at 2 under, they're not my favorites. It's Brooks by a significant amount. Brooks is also starting 2 under. He is $9,000. And if I'm going to go at 2 under, I can go with multiple guys, but if I'm choosing one, I want Brooks. Like not straight up, but relative to salary by a mile, I want Brooks.
Yeah. I mean, we're both on an agreement where we're going to play Brooks. I think that it's going to be at best a 5v5 for our final bobble hat, because I think Brooks is pretty much locked in.
Yeah.
If you put this huge check, I almost said like this prestige, but I think that if you ran down all of these golfers from 8 shots back of the lead, not 8 shots back of everyone, it's always like Patrick Cantlay doesn't have a 10-shot lead on the field. He has it on the bottom 5. He has a 10-shot lead, but I think like with Brooks and his volatility being top 10 in this field over the past year, Rory's actually 3rd, and Xander's like the 5th most consistent golfer, which is kind of a key difference there too. But with Brooks being so volatile, I think that it just makes a ton of sense to take a stab on him at 9,000. It just is kind of too obvious.
Yeah. I agree. So let's move down to some guys who have, so we'll talk more about Brooks later on. But with some other guys with lower salaries who could move their way at the board. One of them is Sergio Garcia, a guy we talked about last week as being someone who's been interesting. I didn't get to him in the bobble hat, but did help to win the head-to-head bet either way. He is minimum salary. We know the tee to green numbers are going to be good. The question is, will he putt? So talk to us about Sergio Garcia at $7,000.
Yeah, I'm still kicking myself because I had talked myself into him on the show last week and didn't put him in our head-to-head. But starts at even par, like you said, minimum salary. And we've seen golfers fit that. Now, it is something I need to point out that 5 golfers start at even par. So and then 10 or 5 more are 1 under. So you're getting 10 shots to make the optimal. So it's not. It can be a little bit misleading to say definitely have a golfer in that salary tier, but the odds of it is just a 1 out of 10 to make the optimal. But Garcia, we know, has that elite tee to green game, but he's played East Lake really well in the past. Finished 15th, 9th, and 10th since 2012. So it's a little bit more outdated than some other golfers. He's played here just once since 2014 when he did finish 10th back in 2017. But that's fine by me because I don't think this course is going to demand true knowledge and playing it, just last year, even though there have been some renovations. But more specifically, over the past 3 months, Garcia is 5th in the field in Data Golf's True Strokes Gained query in terms of strokes gained tee to green, which is awesome for a golfer at minimum salary. This is pretty much the same case I laid out last week in current form to take a long look at Serge, but I missed out on him, and he's now stepping into a course where he's played well, has great tee to green. Don't expect the putting to be what it was last week, but even with okay putting, he can make birdies and score some fantasy points at 7,000. So where are you landing with him this week?
Yeah, so putting factors into birdies are better gained, obviously, because you got to make a putt to make a birdie, usually. But
I'd be a lot better at golf if I didn't have to make those birdie putts.
Correct. We could just drain it with the irons every time and be fine. But with Sergio, he still ranks best among all golfers with the salary below $8,000 in birdies or better gained the past 6 months, despite the bad putter. You mentioned the good tee to green play. That's the reason he grades out so well there. $7,000 comes in, playing some good golf after that event last week. So I think if we're looking strictly at the guys at $7,000, I would say, Sergio, to me, easily above Eric Van Rooyen. I know I've had some flirtations with Van Rooyen in the past, easily above him, above Sink, Horschel, and
those are the 4 at minimum.
Yeah, he's easily the best guy there.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Horschel's injured. Oh, sorry.
I think he's kind of even with Neiman, might prefer. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I do prefer Neiman. I prefer Berger and Connors for sure. But if I really want to save a lot of salary, I think that Garcia really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Horschel. So I'll start with the minimum salary, guys. Horschel's interesting because we are getting a course with Bermuda greens and a course that rewards accuracy. And so there are a few if this was a larger field, we'd be oh, hey, it's a course where hitting fairways and putting on Bermuda makes sense, and that's Billy Horschel. That's Sungjae Im, Harris English too. So I think Horschel has a lot of appeal and probably won't be as popular as Garcia after the strong finish last week. But yeah, I think Garcia and Horschel both very much in play at minimum salary.
Yeah. Okay. So Garcia to me the preferred one, but you could talk me into Horschel. Probably won't get there, but I see the case. Let's talk about Scottie Scheffler. Scheffler starting at 1 under, so he's in a bit of a hole. But we've seen him overcome a hole at this course previously. Last year, Scheffler opened the weekend in 17th. He surged all the way up to 5th by the end of that one. Did that mostly with his approach play. Scheffler gained 5 strokes there. That helped him get that 5th place finish despite losing 2.1 strokes putting and despite being in such a big hole to start things off. This time, Scheffler just 1 under. So again, he's got a boogie, but he's done it. He's $8,500. I think that salary is low enough to make Scheffler pretty interesting for this week. And I think that last year showed he can do it here. What do you think about Scottie Scheffler at $8,500?
Yeah, very much like Scheffler. We know he can play from behind, and I mean, he's already broken 60 on PGA Tour. He can go low with that tee to green. He's going to get a lot of birdie chances. The only issue for me is the salary is a little bit high relative to the start. Whenever I can play like Daniel Berger,
yeah.
So that's probably the biggest issue for me with Scheffler, but nothing specifically against Scheffler. And that's not to say that Scheffler's salary is bad. I think it's appropriate.
Right.
But having Berger, he's not as strong of a value as I would like to see.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think that I would put him above Berger just because like the birdie numbers are a lot better for Scheffler than for Berger. But
at salary?
Yes, at salary I'd rather go Scheffler.
Okay.
I like Berger. I just like Scheffler a bit more.
Okay.
That's not a negative for Berger. It's an endorsement of Scheffler. If that makes sense. Let's move now to current form and talk about some guys playing well. And we'll talk about the top end studs here. You're going to talk about Bryson DeChambeau. I'll talk about Jon Rahm. We could probably get some Patrick Cantlay discussion in there as well. But talk to me first about Bryson. Pretty tough way to go down last week for sure. And obviously some frustration for him after the event. He's 12-6. Bryson is in a good spot still at 7 under. What are you seeing with him for this week?
Yeah, I mean, so this is one of those, I kind of did like the hypotheticals with Jon Rahm entering some majors where he could have had it was like three wins out of 4 events or something. I don't know, something crazy, but I think there's a hypothetical you could spin for Bryson here too. He lost that extended playoff last week because Patrick Cantlay was just like unconscious with the putter. But he, again, as I already said at the top of the show, he just kind of demolished everyone else. And it took an outlier performance from Cantlay to stick close. And it took Cantlay to, just make clutch putt after clutch putt. And so we could honestly be looking at Bryson coming off a super dominant performance. If he had won by 6 shots, we'd be like, okay, Bryson, well, first of all, in that scenario, I don't know for sure, but I would have to imagine he would be starting 10 under with those extra FedEx Cup points. But we could basically be looking at, hey, Bryson just destroyed everyone. He's starting 10 under. This could be a very different conversation. Was 31st at the Northern Trust with good ball striking and poor short game, but 8th at the FedEx St. Jude, which is a WGC event, the small field, no cut course with Bermuda greens. So there's kind of that. We honestly just could be looking at hey, we've seen Bryson do it in the FedEx Cup playoffs. He had the back-to-back wins a couple years ago in the playoffs, and now you just can't really fade him. And it feels like maybe he's kind of ranked 3rd behind Rahm and Cantlay. So talk to me about Rahm, and then we'll figure out the top of the field.
Yeah, so Rahm, despite being a couple strokes back, is the highest salary golfer in the field. He's tied with Cantlay for win odds in terms of sport. At the sports books, he's 4 shots back. But you look at the data golf numbers and okay, I get it. And that's because Rahm's form is stupid. He faded at the end of the BMW and finished 9th, but he finished 9th despite what at least for him is some poor ball striking. He gained 6.9 strokes putting, and that bad ball striking was a blip for Rahm. He has gained at least 10 strokes tee to green in consecutive events before that one. Between then was an unmeasured event where he finished 3rd at the Open. So we know why Rahm is the highest salary guy. We know why his win odds are so low. But it's a lot of faith to have in Rahm, and it's pretty aggressive, putting him effectively above Cantlay when you consider the salary being higher. So do you think Rahm should be the top guy here, or do we have leeway to deviate elsewhere? Maybe go Cantlay over Rahm this week. What are your thoughts on the top end with Bryson mixed in there too?
So I don't think it's egregious to have Rahm as the highest salary golfer. He's starting 4 shots back of Cantlay, but he is also starting ahead of everyone other than Tony Finau and Bryson DeChambeau. So again, it feels like, hey, he's got to make up 4 shots. Well, if you look at Data Golf's true strokes gained query, he is at over the past 3 months, a 3.75 per round adjusted for field strength, over the world baseline golfer, basically, pro golfer, obviously. Cantlay is 2nd at 2.6. So that's 1.25 shots per round better than Cantlay. And so it's crazy. And again, we're looking at a situation where Cantlay has to play at that level. If he falls back a little bit, then it's really just, 2 shots from Finau. And we love Tony Finau on this podcast. It's 1 shot from Bryson at a course that rewards driving accuracy. And I think Data Golf actually has Bryson is like the biggest loser at this course.
No, it's fine. I think that terminology is
as the biggest.
No objections.
Bryson is the biggest loser at this course. No, so they project him to lose 0.2 shots per round based on what stats matter here, and Rahm is effectively even. He's a negative 0.02. Finau is a negative 0.14 because it's just it rewards accuracy. So, Rahm is not going to be hurt from a course where hitting fairways helps because he's one of the more accurate drivers among those who are just super long off the tee. So I still think I got to rank them Rahm, Cantlay, Bryson, and I don't see what's going to change that unless we get news that like the course is completely different, but that's not going to happen.
Right. So if you look at the golfers at 10, 8 and higher, so Cam Smith on up, only 2 guys in that range rank in the top half of the field in good drives gained the past 50 rounds. Those guys are Rahm and Cantlay. So I think that from a course fit perspective, they grade out well. From if you're looking just overall game perspective, they grade out pretty well. I think that for a cash game, you're deciding between those 2. I think that it's one of those 2 guys who you want to have in your lineup. I might still go Cantlay just because I want the 4 shots. I think that's a really nice buffer to have. But like, I could.
You can do both.
Yeah, I mean, you could. For sure.
Starting with both, you have 85.50 left for 4 golfers. If you take a shot on, Garcia.
Like if you take 1 shot on Berger or
that would be Berger. 76. So that's 88.67 for 3 golfers. It's not perfect. So this is probably a good example, something we should just talk about. If you're playing that lineup, you're saying Rahm or Cantlay are going to win. Like, and there's no question in my mind that it's going to be one of those 2. I think I could actually look Rahm and Cantlay in my Sims have, wow, I can't click on these cells. What is Excel doing to me? So they have about a 45% chance to win, let's say. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, okay, it's going to be either Cantlay or Rahm, and that's just kind of how it is. Mm-hmm. Then you don't care so much about, you just want birdies because you're admitting that your value golfers, they're not going to win. And just spoiler alert, these value golfers almost certainly not going to come back and win over everyone else. So if you're doing that, you can feel better about having 4 value golfers. But if you're not having value golfers, you want to make sure that you are really looking at win odds because that's going to just like determine so much this week with how the payouts go.
Yeah. And I think that the Cantlay Rahm lineup together is very interesting. I think that and we're gonna talk about this in the bookmaker section, but like I think getting 2 of those guys up top is pretty interesting, but like just getting the top 2 guys. And 2 to me, I think are a tier above the rest in terms of once you account for course fit, once you account for starting position, all that stuff, I think that they are in a tier of their own.
Yeah, I agree. Now you could make the same thing and say, no, it's Rahm and Bryson, whatever. You could kind of lock yourself into 2 of those guys. Yeah. But if you have concerns about Cantlay holding on to the lead after playing in that playoff, like, just you got to think about how your lineup's going to go together this week. And usually I'd say don't play Rahm and Cantlay because they both can't win. But with Cantlay and Rahm starting where they are, and Rahm probably going to just kind of build himself up from there, that's viable this week, I think.
Yeah. And I think that it also helps that there are some value guys with juice who could climb their way up the leaderboard, one of whom is a guy we've referenced a couple times in Daniel Berger, $7,600. He is starting at even par this week. So Berger needs to make up ground, but he's a good golfer. So what do you see with Daniel Berger here at $7,600 that has drawn you towards him thus far?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a tall order to overcome. Again, it's not a 10-shot lead on everyone. It's a 10-shot lead on Cantlay, but realistically, you're not looking at a win. Just again, not everyone has the win juice this week. I don't think. I think it's fair just to kind of say Daniel Berger. It's going to be a super outlier performance for him to come back and win. But among the 30 golfers in this field, Berger ranks 9th in true strokes gained over the past 3 months, according to Data Golf's query, which is their adjusted strokes gained number. So 9th out of 30th and a salary of $7,600. That salary ranks him 24th. Berger is at the bottom of the FedEx Cup standing. So again, just an even par, but the form is really good. And so he's probably someone who has like sequencing issues maybe with when his best performances came. But 7th at the US Open, 8th at the Open, 5th at the WGC FedEx St. Jude. So those are all amazing, fairly recent performances. 56th at the Northern Trust when he had really bad putting, and 26th at the BMW with also bad putting. This is kind of like tailor-made of, we know how good he is. He's a lot better than the salary indicates. He's a lot better than being just 30th, tied for 26th, I guess, in the FedEx Cup standings. And he's just really good at golf. And it makes sense that we just kind of consider Daniel Berger a very close to a core play for this week. So that's kind of where I am with Berger. I think he's very, very close to a lock for me in my head-to-head with you.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the viability of guys below $7,000. Like, I love Corey Connors, but like, I'm ranking Berger above him pretty easily, and I don't think it's like really a second consideration.
We could be looking at a 4v4 this week.
Yeah,
or a 2v2 actually.
Is it 2v? No, I might not go.
Okay.
Yeah. I know you're referring to.
Okay.
I haven't decided yet, but I think that with Berger, he's the best guy below $8,000 by a decent margin, I would say. So I like Berger a lot. The other guy we've referenced several times throughout the podcast is Brooks Koepka. Let's talk about him. He'll start 2 under, so need some birdies, but I feel okay in saying that Brooks Koepka is able to make some birdies. His form is just fine. He was 31st in the Northern Trust, 22nd in the BMW, but some of that was putting. He lost a combined 2.7 strokes in those 2 events. And now he goes to Bermuda, which is his best surface. When Koepka played this event in 2019 with the current format, he finished 3rd, gained 4.7 strokes in approach, but lost 1.3 off the tee. Other trips here were finishes of 26th, 6th, and 18th. So the course hasn't necessarily suited him, but it's $15 million, and it's Brooks freaking Koepka. He's going to go all out. I feel like the right play this week is to use Koepka. Hope the money is as big of a motivator as you'd think it'd be. And if I know we talked about committing to studs and differentiating with value plays, but I think my highest exposure golfer this week is very, very likely to be Brooks Koepka. What are your thoughts on Koepka at $9,000?
Yeah, I'm with you. That's once we kind of were locked in with Daniel Berger, just talked about Cantlay and Rahm being a cut above everyone else. And then Brooks, where we align a lot, I thought it's very possible that we have a lot of overlap in our head-to-head, because I think that Brooks Koepka just has such an easy case to be made for him. Over the past year, I have him 8th in just standard deviation of his round-by-round scoring in this field, which is the volatility that you want to see if he needs to climb back. Now, for transparency, Daniel Berger's tied for the lowest, so he's the most one of the most consistent golfers. But Brooks is in the 86th percentile in this field in opportunities gained over the past 50 rounds, which is Fantasy National's way of saying, like, are you getting into birdie opportunity? He is in the 79th percentile in Bermuda putting over the past 100 rounds. And kind of with Koepka, what's holding him back is the putting. And like, it's just not great, but the ball striking's there. And so it only takes a hot putter for Brooks to surge back up the leaderboard. Now, I'm not saying that, hey, oh yeah, he's going to win. I think he's a fine bet for sure at 50-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook to come back and win. But he can finish top 10, top 5 pretty easily if he gets going with the putter. So I'm pretty much all in on Brooks.
Yeah. And it's hard for me to find any real issues with Koepka. I think that he's an awesome pick for this week. He is going to be in the head-to-head, just letting you know. There's no use in hiding that. He'll be there for sure. Let's check out what the bookmakers are saying for this week. As mentioned, Jon Rahm and Patrick Cantlay, the co-favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. They're both plus 380. We get to Bryson DeChambeau at 5-1. Tony Finau is plus 650. Then there is a big dip down to Justin Thomas at 18-1. Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, and Cameron Smith are all 22-1. Xander Schaffler and Jordan Spieth checking in at 26-1. Abraham Answer is 34-1. Then we have Sam Burns, Harris English, and Colin Morikawa. They are rounding at the top group there at 37-1. So let's talk about the top group, Brandon, because we kind of alluded to it before. We've got 4 guys with win odds shorter than 10-1 in Rahm, Cantlay, DeChambeau, and Finau. They have salaries to justify that, and salaries that say, hey, you're going to pay the piper, but it seems like we're on the same page where you might want to get 2 in there. Do you agree?
I never like paying the piper. I don't know what that means, but
Google this. There are a lot of weird phrases like paying the piper. I just want to make sure there are a lot of old phrases. Bear the consequences of an action or activity that one has enjoyed. I enjoy using John Rahm and Patrick Cantlay.
I never face the consequences of my own actions. So
look at me. Look at this. The consequences of my own actions. Crazy.
So do I want 2 of these golfers in my lineup? Yeah. Because again, with the optimals that we've seen here, so 2019, we had guys starting 3rd, 5th, and 6th. And then last year, 1st, 3rd, and 11th. So kind of, it's about that 2 to 3 range for sure. These also are the best golfers in the field, regardless of where they're starting. And I think it's really easy to lose the fact of like, there's still money on the line for finishing, let's say 5th instead of 6th. And so, Xander, for instance, probably has a really hard path to coming back and winning. I have him at 1% in my win simulations, which seems really low, but like, it's not that he has to chase down just Patrick Cantlay. It's all those guys in front of him. So like, that's a big part of it. But for me, definitely having 2, possibly 3, if I can talk myself into multiple low end value plays, but I'm probably going to limit things to like 1 value play in that 7,000 range per lineup.
Right. I won't get to 3. I know that. I will get to 2 in a good number of lineups. I will say though, I'm not going to have 2 in every lineup. I think that going 1, like if you go a Cantlay, Berger, and then just pepper that mid-range with dudes who could rise to the leaderboard, I think that's also a really fun lineup.
We haven't talked like at all about the mid-range, which is kind of
really good.
It's like a small mid-range. There's like 8 guys in like what we'd consider a mid-range, but tons of great golfers, and we'll talk about them in our player picks. But that is something that's worth calling out.
10-5 and 9-5. Xander, sweet. Answer, sweet.
Love Answer.
English,
love him.
He's good.
I think he's a great tournament play because it's that he can hit fairways and putt on Bermuda, and that's what Harris English does at his peak.
Speaking of putting on Bermuda, Sam Burns is 9-9.
Love him.
9-9. He's 4 under as well. Morikawa Bunga got Hovland, Louis. Those are all guys between 9-5 and 10-5. That's a sick range.
Yeah.
I think that if you're not going to go with 2, you go with 1 and then just pepper the daylights out of that range. I think that that's the other really viable path this week.
Yeah. It's so hard because I like so many golfers. I mean, I will obviously make cuts, but I think the worst range for me is like 10-9 to 12-6, which feels scary. But that's like your Brysons, Finau, JT, DJ, JT as in Justin Thomas, for anyone who doesn't know. Jordan Spieth and Rory, like, I think they're a little bit over-salaried for. It's not egregious, but I think there's not particularly good values there.
I agree. So I think the 2 viable routes this week are 2 guys in the upper range and then figuring it out from there, or 1 guy up there and then just abusing that mid-range. Those are the 2 routes I like the most. Things have not shifted much from a betting perspective this week because odds came out later. It seems like there hasn't been a lot of action on any one golfer specifically. So
it's also hard to bet on, I think, like just because the starting scores and like I factor that into my simulations, obviously, but like it's kind of hard to wrap your head around a little bit. So it's just a weird week. But hey, if you want, you can check out numberFire.com and check out my win simulations.
Wow. Plug. numberFire.com. Tremendous stuff. Which lower salary golfers have odds to stand out to you?
I can't call him Lou. Lou Oosthuizen, which I wish he would go by Lou Oosthuizen because that would just be a nightmare. But Louis Oosthuizen is 45-1. His size 9,500. It's tough because we don't know what his health is or commitment level, honestly. But he's starting 3 under. Sungjae Im, someone you cut off in that discussion of like 10-5 to 9-5. He's 9,200. But again, fairway and Bermuda specialist. So I think he's intriguing. He's 50-1. Same as Brooks Koepka, who starts a shot worse than Sungjae at 2 under. He's obviously 9,000. We talked about him plenty. Scotty Scheffler, Jason Kokrak, both 100-1 in the mid to low 8,000 range. And Hideki Matsuyama starting 1 under. He's 120-1. His salary is 8,100. Hideki, someone who could climb. I kind of missed the boat on Hideki, and I started like finally buying back in a little bit too late. So I'm probably not going to get to Hideki, but again, would it surprise anyone if Hideki just starts piling up birdies? I don't think so.
Yeah. Surprise is the, I want to hear your thoughts on Sungjae though, because Sungjae, you were slacking me before about how the ball striking's been getting better. He knows how to find a fairway. He's a very good Bermuda putter. He's not in our player picks, but I feel like he is worthy of being talked up as well. As much as I love Brooks, I don't want to totally overlook Sungjae at $200 more.
Yeah. Actually, entering last week, Austin Swaim, who does our UFC podcast, a lot of our NASCAR content, asked me about Sungjae, and I was like, the irons
golf stuff too.
We talk sometimes about lineups and stuff.
Let's say, what sport does he not do? All right, cool. This is good to know.
I think he does everything, but
okay, good to know.
He was like, hey, asking me about Sungjae, and I was like, I don't really like Sungjae just because the long-term form's not particularly strong. But then, obviously he finished 3rd last week, and I felt like an idiot. But then I looked back at his event log, and like the irons have been back, and now back as a stretch because when he came on the scene, we thought he was like the next like approach god, right? And he turned out to be not that. Now the irons are there. We know the driver is pretty much always on point with him, and he's generally a good putter. So like if the irons show up, there's a lot to like about Sungjae. I think, again, Harris English, Billy Horschel, Sungjae Im, a few others, but they kind of fit that specialist mold, and it's easy to like lose sight of that this week because we're worried about the starting scores. But I think Sungjae is a great play. And I know it sounds like I'm talking about everybody now, but again, it's the 30 of the best golfers in the world. I think you make a case for a lot of them.
Yeah. I think that Sungjae is someone I want to make sure I don't overlook, despite I'm going to shovel in all the Brooks I can handle. Weather this week, it looks great. Great weekend to play some golf. No objections here. So let's move now to our player picks for the Tour Championship. Starting off in the top tier, Brandon, in this upper range, who are you targeting for this week at East Lake Golf Club?
I'm just going with Jon Rahm. He's the best play to me, even though he's starting 4 shots off of Patrick Cantlay's score. Again, just 2 other golfers above him with Bryson and Tony Finau ahead of him. So, I don't know if I'd even need to say anything about Jon Rahm at this point, but like my simulations do prefer Cantlay outright because of the hyper recent form and the starting score edge, but you just can't nitpick Jon Rahm. You just can't do it.
Yeah, it's tough to say anything negative about him. As far as Cantlay goes, he's my top salary guy. He has bad history at East Lake, but he's steady. He has a massive advantage here with the strokes, so I would like to get there. Cantlay should be solid no matter how the course plays. He ranks 11th in distance and 11th in good drives gained. He ranks 8th in strokes gained off the tee. And it's true that Cantlay did most of his work at the BMW on the greens, and he will lose that edge of Bermuda this week, but he gained 4.6 tee to green at the Northern Trust, 5.8 at the St. Jude, 14.3 at the Memorial, 9.3 at the PGA. The ball striking is still great, even if it wasn't great last week when he still won the freaking event. Cantlay ranks 3rd in true strokes gained the past 6 months. He will start 2 strokes over the field. I would am I too low on Finau? I don't think Finau's going to crack my player pool this week. Is that dumb on my part?
So again, like we're getting into that territory where I've said nice things about probably 20 of the 30 golfers in the field, which is a little bit scary. Finau doesn't set up particularly great for this course.
Yeah.
Now his putting's getting a lot better. He did change his putter, and I just wish this was like there was just more of like a database of when guys made equipment changes. But his putting has been trending up lately with a new putter. Data Golf does have him as one of the biggest losers at the course.
Not as big of a loser as Bryson, though.
No. Tony Finau, probably coolest guy on the tour, but I don't see myself getting there. Yeah. And it would not surprise me though if Finau goes out and gets a win, starting, eight under par, wins 15 million, and people are like, well, it wasn't like a real win still or something. So it feels like it could happen, but
yeah, that's fair. I think that the way I'm viewing the top four is Rahm and Cantlay in one tier, Bryson in a tier by himself, then Finau in a tier by himself. And I will say, like, I can say now I won't have any Finau.
Mm-hmm.
I would also not be that shocked if I finish building and I don't have Bryson either. I think that I am so committed to having enough two Cantlay plus Rahm lineups, plus enough Cantlay by himself, plus enough Rahm by himself, where I would not be shocked if that comprises every single lineup I do this week. So Finau pretty definitely out. I would not be shocked if Bryson is out too.
And what about the tier below that? Because I think we're both skipping over them. Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy. Do you think you have any of them? Because I might not.
I am more likely to have them than Finau.
Okay.
I'll say that.
And it's not an active avoidance for me with them. It's that I want Cantlay and Rahm, and that I like the tier below them pretty well too.
I think I could get to Spieth. Potentially Cam Smith too. I know Cameron Smith is not like not the best accuracy guy, not the best like ball striker in general, but I could see myself getting there. So I think that Spieth and Smith are interesting, but that's mostly because they're on the bottom end of that tier.
I would say I like the dingo Cam Smith, but Spieth also a negative 0.2 at Eastlake according to Data Golf, so he's tied with Bryson.
Right. It's the biggest loser, but we love Jordan Spieth. So,
yes.
There's that. Let's check out the other high salary golfers. Who else do you have there?
I was going to go with Cam Smith, but I reconsidered and went with Xander for a salary savings of $300. I think he's going to go overlooked, although the FanShare sports tags don't quite say that. So if Xander is going to be super chalky, I will just go back to Cam Smith, who starts 3 shots better than Xander. I talked about his elite history already at Eastlake, but it's hard to see him getting talked up so much, but I guess he is already. So we'll kind of a wait and see there. 66th percentile in adjusted tee to green over the past year in my database. Great Bermuda putter. Irons are good. One of the few long and accurate drivers we have. It just feels like super safe, super obvious to go with Xander at a court, like in an event that's no cut. He's just going to go out and play his own golf against like the world's best. I feel like that's what brings it out in him. He's not going to be the focus. He probably could finish T2 and not really even be shown if he's not in a feature group. So like that just kind of feels like a Xander like top 3 week that we're just like, yeah, that made a lot of sense.
So I pulled up the FanShare tags once you brought it up, and Cantlay is 11th. It's very early, but he only has 2 tags. Like that's behind Finau, JT, and Rahm. Rahm's like the runaway guy.
Yeah.
I feel like Cantlay is going to be under rostered relative to where he should be in tournaments based on that.
Let me look here. They have, so that might be a little bit sensitive to some salary things.
Yeah, because he is higher salary than Rahm on a different site that shall not be named. So maybe that's why.
And a higher percentage of the salary cap.
Yeah. So.
Which I think Rahm should be the highest salaried. So I think it's
yeah. I still think that there's a possibility he's a bit less rostered than he should be. So talk about Abraham Answer, my second high salary guy. He will start at 4 under, which is actually not that bad. And there are a lot of things that work in Answer's favor after accounting for that. He is not a distance guy, but this is also not a distance course. Good drive rates, back tested well for me. What?
We gotta have we got to come up with terms for like, we say distance guy and accuracy guy.
He's not a long boy.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Nailed it. Answer's not a long boy, but he's an accurate boy. He leads the field in good drives gained the past 50 rounds per Fantasy National. He's also 10th in approach, 16th in birdies or better gained, and 15th in Bermuda putting. But I think that the overall profile should perform well here. The lingering weakness is the around the green play for Answer, but based on data golf numbers, based on finishing data the past couple years, that matters a lot less here than other spots. So I feel good about Answer at 10-4. Also should mention that like if you look at past rankings of golfers who have done well here in 2019, if you look at the golfers who gained the most strokes for the full season, they actually were about 20 spots worse in strokes gained around the green than the guys who lost at least 2 strokes overall at this course. So around the green play just really doesn't seem to matter that much. So I like Abe. What are your thoughts on Abe?
Yeah, Abe would be I would have featured him over Xander, over Cam Smith. If you didn't get to the sheet first, gets a huge boost at a course such as East Lake. We know that he's going to hit fairways. He's going to, he's got such a smooth swing, but he's not necessarily the best ball striker, but he's above field average. And just really balanced aside from the wedge play. So, and again, I don't think that's going to matter too much. And just like 3rd percentile in driving distance, 97th percentile in fairways gained. You put that at a course where you don't have to be long. That is going to help Abe Answer this week. So love him.
Abe Answer, not a long boy, but the right boy this week. Let's move down to the mid-range, which we do like a lot. This mid-range is sick. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Victor Hovland at 96. I've been on Hovland for a while now. Also a golfer who just gets a boost on a course that rewards driving accuracy. He's in the 79th percentile there. He can get into scoring position and score well. 97th percentile in opportunities gained. 86th percentile in birdie or better rate gained. So still converting at a pretty high rate. Just kind of a baseline putter on Bermuda. Starting at 3 under, though, for $9,600 in terms of his salary on FanDuel. I like that. Just an elite ball striker. We know that the salary's right. I can't really nitpick Victor Hovland. And as much as we love the guys at the top and we like these value plays, we're talking about some names here that's like, why don't I just build a balanced lineup this week? But talking to me about Morikawa.
Yeah, I actually had written up Hovland initially. Like I had written out all my notes on Hovland, changed my mind, went to Morikawa. So I like them both a lot. I could have gone with either here, but Morikawa in a funk. He's not a good Bermuda putter, but I think the larger sample says that he could be like a rock star level play here at $9,600. Morikawa starts at 3 under. He is the guy with the highest salary of that tier, but he also ranks 4th among all golfers in true strokes gained the past 6 months per Data Golf. In addition to the putting, the other weakness is chipping, but again, that may not matter as much this week. Even with the struggles recently, Morikawa still ranks 3rd in the field in good drives gained. He ranks 1st in approach. I'm willing to bet on a bounce back here, which might not work, but I'm fine shooting for upside in a small field. And like nothing to me says upside more than Colin Morikawa at $9,700, regardless of where he's starting. I think that's just like, I think we need to go here. So Hovland and Morikawa to me, both great plays. Rather than choosing one, I'd rather just choose both. So that's where I'm skewing on those guys.
It's fine by me. Morikawa, super accurate, 93rd percentile in fairways gained, 7th in standard deviation of his scoring, which kind of implies some upside, especially with a generally high baseline for him because he's just a good golfer. So a lot to like about Morikawa this week.
Who else do you like here in the mid-range?
A big hitter, Sam Burns.
Long boy.
So
there you go.
Yes, long boy Sam Burns. Great mustache game. If there is one, I don't know if that actually. It
can exist. That's yeah.
But he gains 0.8 strokes per round on Bermuda with a putter over the past 100 rounds. Like we play Sam Burns on Bermuda courses a lot. Now he's long. He's a long boy. Not necessarily the most accurate golfer, but I don't think that that's enough to get away from Sam Burns. Especially at a salary of $9,900, starting 4 under. I think that feels probably too high for a lot of people with Morikawa and Hovland right below that. So kind of playing some leverage here with Sam Burns. Again, we typically look at him on longer courses, but having driving distance isn't a bad thing ever. Just kind of that Bermuda specialist who can make a lot of birdies. And while I'm here, I still think Harris English and Sung J M in the mid range are very much in play, but I rank them obviously behind Burns.
How would you rank Burns, Morikawa, and Hovland?
Hovland, Burns, Morikawa, okay. Which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever said, to rank Morikawa below.
I have him first. I like Morikawa most in that tier, followed by Hovland and Burns. But like, I think I'll be, especially in those like single stud lineups, I will be in this range enough where I'll still get to Sam Burns despite having third among those guys.
No, I'm going Morikawa. Give me Morikawa first.
Okay. I was going to offer a head-to-head, but
no. Hovland, Morikawa, Burns. There it is.
Do you want to do a Hovland versus Morikawa head-to-head?
Yes, and that guarantees that Morikawa will dominate this week.
Okay, so I'm going to lock Morikawa into the bobble hat. Just kidding, not actually. But either way, okay, so we have more. I have Morikawa head-to-head FanDuel points, and you have Hovland, which means you get a one-stroke lead over me. Sorry, they're both at 3 under. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So they're starting at the same spot. Either way.
I was like that Sam Burns.
Morikawa, Bunga, baby. My second mid-salary guy is technically not a mid-salary guy. He would count as a value, but I'm kind of viewing him as a mid-range guy this week, and that's Brooks Koepka. I just feel like the gap between the guys starting at 2 under, which is Rory, Xander, and Koepka, is absurd. Koepka ranks 13th in good drives gained, 15th in approach, 11th in birdies or better gained, 7th in Bermuda putting, and that's in events where he's actively said he's not trying that hard. That alone should be enough for him to be higher salary than $9,000. And we've seen him be full Brooks recently. He was 6th at the Open, 4th at the US Open, 2nd at the PGA. So when he wants to turn it on, he can still do that. Koepka ranks 11th in data golfs, true strokes gained the past 6 months, but he's 18th in salary. I think he feels like a no-brainer this week. So I love Brooks Koepka. Any final thoughts for you on him?
Yeah, I love Koepka. You also excluded Jason Kokrak and Kevin Na starting at 2 under.
That was not an accident. With Na, at least. Do I have Kokrak later? I do. So we'll talk about Kokrak later. With Na, it was not an accident. I know he's been really good recently, but nah. Let's move down to the value tier. Guys, below $9,000. Who you got there this week?
I'm going to go Corey Connors, 7,700, 79th percentile in opportunities gained, just 24th percentile in birdie conversion because he can't putt. 90th percentile in adjusted ball striking, though, over the past year. That is 4th best by, if you just rank them. I know percentiles are not as helpful in a 30 golfer field as they are in a 156 golfer field, but salary is 23rd, so 4th best ball striker long-term. Hard to hate on that. Best long-term golfer in my database among golfers with sub $9,000 salaries and super, super accurate. So I think that's going to bump him up the board for me this week.
I have mentioned I prefer Berger over Connors. I know you have Berger later on, but I still like Connors and we'll still use him. He'd be one of the rotational guys down there. My first low salary guy is Scottie Scheffler. We talked about him in the course history section, but I like the form enough to be in on him from that perspective too. Scheffler is someone who can score well while starting out at just 1 under because you need to get birdies, but he can get those. He ranks 4th in the field in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. Hovland may also get a slight bump up due to the emphasis on quality drives. He is 14th in distance, but ranks 4th in strokes gained off the tee. Scheffler gained 4.1 in approach at the BMW, finishes 22nd, but that was mostly because the driver was more middling there. If the driver comes back a bit this week, he will get some birdies. It also helps that Bermuda, in a very, very, very small sample for Scheffler, is his least bad putting surface. So it's not a positive, but it also helps that it's not a negative there. So I like Scheffler a lot, 85. You talked before about how he might be seeming a bit like not a value. I agree with that, but I still like him quite a bit. What are your thoughts on Scotty Sheffler here?
Yeah, I mean, I like him. He's lumped in as like an other to consider for me among the lower salaried picks, but just with the salary savings I get on Daniel Berger, it's really difficult for me to prioritize Scheffler. So again, it's a fair salary, but just not popping up as a value. And for me, a big part of that, again, is Daniel Berger at 7,600, who's my final love for the week. Starts at even par, but is just the second best long-term golfer in the field below 9,000. Ranks second in approach over the past 6 months, 7th tee to green according to Data Golf. Over the past 3 months, second in approach, 3rd tee to green, 83rd percentile in fairways gained over the past 50 rounds, and a positive baseline Bermuda putter. So again, not necessarily a specialist, because he's better than just being a specialist or someone that we kind of bump up in certain situations, but he checks the box of hitting fairways and putting on Bermuda.
Yeah, I think that he's just kind of hard to nitpick. Again, he, along with Brooks, the big lock for our head-to-head for this week. My second low salary guy is Jason Kokrak. We've not discussed yet. I do like Connors. I do like Berger a lot, but we haven't talked about Kokrak yet. He is $8,200. I think he's pretty fun. He'll start at 2 under, which is same level as Xander, Rory, and Brooks. When Kokrak played Eastlake back in 2019, he gained 4.9 strokes in approach. He gave most of it back on the greens, but Kokrak has been putting better recently, ranked 16th in Bermuda putting the past 100 rounds. His irons got back on track last week. He had lost in 3 straight events, but then at the BMW, Kokrak gained 3.4 there. He has distance. He is not erratic off the tee. He ranks 15th in good drives gained. I think that Kokrak grades out well $8,200 and very willing to go there. We know you like Berger more than Scheffler. Where do you rank Scheffler relative to Kokrak? So excluding Berger entirely, where do you rank Scheffler and Kokrak compared to each other?
Scheffler over Kokrak for me.
By a wide margin or no?
Enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any Kokrak for you or no?
Probably not.
Okay. I can't get a head-to-head out of this because like it's Hideki there and I like Hideki too. So can't get a head-to-head out of it. We did get the one with Morikawa versus Hovland. Let's finish up here with win picks. And Brandon, you mentioned I still have a shot to win this. I am 26 units behind you. So I need to win with like someone who's 26-1 or longer. I need you to not win. I know I mentioned like I'm not going to just throw out long shots for long shots, but I think actually this week there are guys who I like who are longer than that. And guys, I'd actually be willing to like look towards. Those guys to me are Colin Morikawa and Brooks Koepka. You could block me by taking both, but I have faith in you as a human. So I'm going to just tell you those are my picks. Colin Morikawa, Brooks Koepka. I think both those guys grade out really well.
Well, those are 2 guys who I recommended already this week. So now, like, I can be a nice guy and play this out, even though I gifted you Patrick Cantley's win last week. So I've been struggling with this because I easily could have just blocked you because I have that ability. But I will go with this is tough. I'll go with.
Well, what I would say is if you think those are the 2 best bets in the field, block me with one of them. Like take Brooks out or take Morikawa out. Take out one of them and then go somewhere else with your second pick. How about that?
Okay, I'm gonna
Who
go.
Would you rather block?
Probably Morikawa, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so you can have Morikawa. Who's your second one pick then?
I'll go Cam Smith.
Okay. So Cam Smith 22-1 and Morikawa at 37. I also have Morikawa at 37 and Brooks at 50. Would you have gone Brooks as like the best value on the board had I not gone there?
Yeah, like, okay. But I guess Morikawa is probably just more likely to win, I guess.
Right. Okay. So I've got Brooks. If Brooks wins, I win the betting picks for this year. If Smith or Morikawa or anyone else wins, then you win. So it's all in on Brooks Koepka for the Tour Championship. I look forward to the endless tilt if Koepka wins.
Yeah, that's never going to end if that happens.
The DJ one from last year has never gone away. So
no, that never will.
That will never go away either. We'll see. Maybe if Koepka wins, we can call it a wash. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, the bobble hat will also be decided this week. No event next week, correct?
Correct.
When's the Ryder Cup?
So it should be no event next week. Some weird event. I don't remember the name of it. Then the Ryder Cup.
Okay. So we'll see if they have contest of the Ryder Cup. They have not in the years past, but I wouldn't be shocked if they add something here. So we'll see about that. But no show next week here on the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, but we'll tweet about the winner of the bobble hat on Sunday once it is conclude.
It's the Fortinet Championship.
I've never heard of that before.
It's Silverado, but
Fortinet?
I get.
Is it like a Bush Light version of like Fortnite or something, or what is this?
Fortinet cybersecurity.
Okay. Well, they're probably going to hack our computers now that we said we have no idea who they are. So that's fun. If we're not here in 2 weeks, you now know why. It's because, well, it's probably because we've quit or something. I don't know. Either way, it's not because of them. But either way, that is all that we have here for this week. If you want more thoughts from Brandon on the Tour Championship, make sure you swing by today, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Pick his brain on betting and DFS for this week. Ask him any question you've got. He'll pull up his spreadsheets and let you know his thoughts on those questions. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcasts, PGA, UFC, NASCAR, MLB, NFL returning 1 week from Thursday. So a lot of reasons to subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
Matt Godola 13, GDULA 13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you this week. Enjoy the Tour Championship. Enjoy seeing those DFS scores go up, and enjoy what should be a fun head-to-head this week for the Bubble Hat Champion. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.